Hey, do you have demo-itis? Let's talk about it. As a producer, artist, engineer, I understand all the different sides and all the different takes of demo-itis. Like, I get it. From a producer and artist standpoint, it's like when you have that certain vibe and that feeling that you don't want anybody to mess with, and you think it sounds amazing. Like, hey, I don't want the engineer to mess this up. Like, I get it. I have plenty of beats where I know it sounds dope and I don't really have to do much mixing to them, or any mixing, really. And same thing with certain songs. Sometimes I'll record something and it comes out perfect as I'm recording, and I don't have to do really anything to the mix. But the main thing is you have to know, is this good? Like, is this good enough to where an engineer doesn't need to polish it, or does it need a little bit more work to make it go that extra mile? Now, in a lot of cases that I've seen, people that have demo-itis, they're just so married to the sound. But when you have another set of ears listen to it, especially when you're working with a professional engineer, there's going to be a lot of things that need to be addressed. And most of it is really like just polishing, just EQ stuff, just to make it sound sonically professional like other major releases. So yeah, I think it's something that you have to discuss with your engineer. You could tell them, hey, I like this, don't really mess with this, but I need, maybe some more high end, or maybe I need a little bit more bass on the mix, or whatever. Something that I recommend to artists and producers who do have demo-itis and they're afraid of an engineer touching their mixes, I suggest printing everything that you like. Print everything, meaning whatever effects you have, whatever processing you have on your vocals, whatever you have on your beat, your drums, your music, print all the effects. So then you could tell the mix engineer, hey, I already have my effects that I really like. I don't need you to do any of that, but I need you to just adjust a couple of levels here and there, add some polish to maybe the high end, maybe remove and notch out a couple of harsh frequencies from the vocal, and bam, done. But if you don't print all your effects and you just send dry stems to a mix engineer, they might mix it their own way, and then you're going to be mad at them because it sounds completely different from your original version. And yeah, like, you can't blame the mix engineer for that because you, the artist, producer, didn't send the correct files. You should always print what you're happy with and discuss with your mix engineer, would you also like dry stems in addition to the processed stems? And then the mix engineer will take what you did and just bring it to the next level. So yeah, make sure, very important, print your effects, print your processing to the stems, to your multi-tracks, and have that conversation with your mix engineer, like, hey, I really love the sound that I already brought to the table. Give them some guidelines, like, hey, do this, don't do this. I'm really happy with the way this particular thing sounds, but this needs a little bit more work, or whatever. Just have that conversation. Here's another thing though. If you have demo-itis on one of your songs, but the mix is really shit, it's like there's gonna be a lot of work that needs to be done. Like, let's say the vocal is like really distorted, or let's say the snare is way too loud, or the whatever. Like, yeah, those things could be stylistic choices, but generally you're not gonna want to have a really muddy vocal or a distorted vocal or an unbalanced drum track on your song. So yeah, there's gonna have to be some engineering work that needs to be done. As the artist and producer, you kind of have to let go a little bit and say, hey, look, I want this song to be the best it can be. I'm going to put my trust in this engineer to help bring this song to life. So you kind of have to be realistic with yourself and say, yeah, some songs might be almost there, maybe 90%, and the engineer just needs to add that little bit of polish, that little touch, and it's done. But then there's other times when, you might love that song, but it's like the mix is not good at all. And you really need to have the engineer go in on it and really make it better than what you had. And you might think it's like, oh man, it's not the same, it's not this. Well, yeah, it's better than it was. Yeah, of course it's not the same exact thing. It's better. The vocals no longer muddy. The drums are hitting harder. Those annoying harsh frequencies that are piercing my ears are gone. I guess at the end of the day, if I guess if you love it like that, release it as is and just don't mix it. If you feel strongly about a song that is good as is, hey, put it out just like that. The downside is I've worked a lot in sync and placed a lot of my songs and instrumentals on TV shows and all that. And I can tell you one thing. The mixes have to be sonically similar to major songs that are out there. If you have something that's like super muddy and unmixed, they're not going to accept it. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. So just my thoughts on Demo-Itis, you know? Like I said, there's definitely been some songs and some beats where I've felt like, hey, I don't want this to be touched. But I also knew if I don't want it to be changed too much in the mixing process, I will make sure I print all the stuff that I really like, so that stuff is never taken away. It can only be better from there, you know? It's always best to print what you're happy with, and the mix engineer will just take it to the next level and enhance what you send them. And, you know, more often than not, I get a lot of sessions from people who don't print any of their stuff that they're happy with, and then they wonder why it sounds different. Well, you know, I'm not going to sit there and remake your mix from scratch. Like, I'm going to assume that you didn't like what you did, and you're giving me that freedom to do my thing and mix it how I want to mix it. So unless you have that conversation with the mix engineer, they're not going to know, and they're just going to do their own thing. So communication is key. Communicate with your mix engineer. Let them know what you want. Let them know what you don't want. And if you don't want anybody touching your stuff, then just put it out like that. Just know that you're probably not going to be able to get sync licensing stuff if it's poorly mixed. So moral of the story is, if you have Demo-Itis, either don't get your song mixed at all and put it out as is, or print all your effects and processing to your stems and multitracks and communicate with your engineer and let them know what you want and what you don't want to be done to your song. Let the professionals handle it, man. Let the professionals do their thing and make your song better than what it was, you know? And that's it.